say for section 3.4, it's on finding slope. So we know that we can find slope by counting, or we can use a formula. So we're going to practice both of those ways on this sheet. So in this first section, they want you to find the slope of a line that passes through the points. All you need to do is count from one point to the other. Count the rise and count the run. If your rise is positive, that means you're going up. If your rise is negative, that means you're going down. If your run is positive, you're going to the right. If your run is negative, you're going to the left. Remember, slope is rise over run. So all I'm doing here is I'm counting up and to the right. It's important to know the scale. We're counting by ones because that's the point 1 right there on the y-axis. So we're going up 1, 2. So if I would write my slope as a fraction, remember lowercase m is what slope is abbreviated by. I'm rising 2, and I'm also running 2. So my slope is 2 over 2. Just reduce that to 1 over 1. Make sure you reduce your fractions. Always write your slopes as fractions. Number 2, well, here's another thing before we move on. Notice how that line that connects those 2 points is going uphill. You have a positive slope. So when you have a positive slope, it should be going uphill, and vice versa. So this is a good way to check yourself. Again, if you would put your line on here, notice how that's an uphill slope. So your slope better be positive. We're going from A to B. How far up did we go? How far to the right did we go? We're just going to count. But you got to know what scale you're using. So notice how the 1 is here and the 1 is here. That's telling me that we're counting by ones. 1, 2, 3, 4 up. 1, 2 to the right. So 4 over 2, rise over run, reduce. Number 3. That's a downhill slope. So your slope's going to be negative. Just keep that in mind. So we're counting from A to B. We're going down and then to the right. And another thing to point out, also notice the scale. Every time you jump, you're not jumping 1, you're jumping 2. That's what it's telling you there. The scale there is you're counting by 2s. So we're going down 2, 4, 2 and 4. So that's negative 4 because I went down. And then I'm going to the right, so that's going to be positive. 2, 4, 6, 8. Common mistake on this one, maybe you lose the negative, or maybe you're not counting by 2s, maybe you just count by 1s. Be careful. So your slope there is negative 1/2. Count to find your slopes. Now, the reason you need those skills is they're going to ask you in this next section if the lines are parallel. Well, they would be parallel if they had the same slope. So I'll make that note here. If they have the same slope, then they are parallel. So step 1, find the slope. Step 2, compare the slopes. Both of these lines in number 4 are horizontal. We should know that horizontal lines have a slope of 0. Are they parallel? Yes. Here's 2 lines. They sure look parallel. Now, you can't just say, well, they look parallel, so they're parallel. You got to find the slopes. So I'm going to find the slope of this first line. I'm going to count up and to the right. So notice how I make that little triangle there. I am counting by 1s because there's the point 2. So I'm going up 1, 2. And I'm going over 1, 2, 3. The slope of that top line is 2/3. Bottom line, does it have a slope of 2/3? Now let's see. I'm going up 1 and 2 to the right. 2/3 and 1/2, not the same fraction. These are not parallel. Number 6, are these lines parallel? They touch right there. They are not parallel. You don't need to find any slopes here. You can kind of save your brain for some other things. 7 through 9, are the lines perpendicular? Well, perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slope. Maybe you know what that means, maybe you don't. Opposite means one's positive, one's negative. Reciprocal means if you have a fraction, like 2/3, its reciprocal would be 3/2. You flip the fraction. So you need one to be positive, one to be negative, and then you need to have reciprocal fractions. That would create perpendicular lines. So here's number 7. I have a vertical line here, and I have a horizontal line here. We have a postulate that says when you have a vertical line and a horizontal line, they are perpendicular. So you didn't need to do any work there, but you could have. Horizontal lines have a slope of 0. Vertical lines have an undefined slope. So you can't really compare undefined with 0 mathematically. That's why we have the theorem. Number 8. These two lines sure do look perpendicular. I can't just say it because they look perpendicular. I need to find the slopes. So I'm going to find the slope of this uphill line first. I know it's positive because it's going uphill. I'm going to go from A to B because both of those points are on the line. Notice how D is not on the uphill line. That's important. So I'm going from A to B. I'm going to the right and then I'm going up. And it doesn't matter if you go to the right first or up first. Just make sure you put your rise in the numerator. So my rise, and I'm counting by ones here, is 1, 2, 3. And my run is 2. So the slope of the uphill line is 3/2. How about the line that's going downhill? What is its slope? Well, I know it's negative because it's going downhill. I'm going from point C to point D. I'm going to go to the right and then down. And that's fine if that's what you want to do. Just make sure you record it as rise over run. My rise is -1 because I went down. My run is +2 because I went to the right. These are opposites. That's positive, that's negative, but they aren't reciprocals. 3/2, when you flip it, does not give you 1/2. Not perpendicular. No. Okay, number 9, I'm assuming they're probably going to be perpendicular, but just because they look like it, don't say yes. You need to find slopes. So we'll do the uphill one first again. Let's find the slope of line AB. I'm going to count up, and I'm going to count to the right. My scale is, counting by ones, 1, 2, 3, 4, up, and 1 over. Slope of the downhill line now. It's got to be negative because we're going downhill. I'm going to go down 1, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 to the right. Down 1, 4 to the right. Take a look at those slopes. Positive, negative, 4 over 1, 1 over 4. They're perpendicular because those are opposite reciprocals.